Colleagues from around the country, welcome. Welcome to our Child First Effective Partnership Practice webinar. I will literally give colleagues another minute or two to join. Um, in the meantime, I'll just give you a little bit of a briefing as to how to do things and what to expect. Delighted to see so many people as participants. It would be lovely, actually, to know something about you. So in the chat function, in the first 2 minutes of this webinar, if you click on chat, it'll be so nice if you say, put down your name and your involvement. If you're a youth justice professional, if you are from the YJB, if you're from a police force somewhere, just to start a bit of interaction. So please use the chat pane. We have had one person already. Thank you so much, saying a little bit about themselves and where they do. We'd like this to be interactive, but as this is a webinar, I cannot invite people to verbally contribute. So if you do have a question or a query, please put it into the chat pane, and my esteemed colleagues on this call will do their best to answer it. I will start officially in literally 15 seconds or so. But we've had a lovely group of people join, and thank you so much for the chat coming in. Lovely to see so many different types of role: speech and language therapists, team managers. Absolutely brilliant. A fantastic showing. So, without further ado, let me begin today. Today's webinar is on Child First Effective Partnership Practice, and it is focusing on developments in the custody suite. I am so lucky to be joined by colleagues from around the country. I have with me Acting Chief Inspector Paul Brodie from Cleveland, who I know has been on the call. He'll be joining us if he's not on already very soon. We've got Custody Inspector Wes Gladwin from Warwickshire. We have Inspector Matt Fox from North London Met Police, and we also have Custody Logistics Coordinator Bill Hillier from Avon and Somerset. So hopefully over the course of today, we will get some fantastic insights as to what they do and how they do it. I'll start off with a perspective actually from the head teacher's perspective, and then I'm going to ask Phil from AYM, the Association of Youth Offending Team Managers, to say something as well. My school served an era of outstanding natural deprivation, and it's fair to say I got to know the local police quite well. It wasn't a reflection of the school, but it was perhaps a reflection of the society that we served. I clearly remember one incident where we had a 16-year-old young man who was at the time in a secure accommodation 14 miles away from the school because of the problems he was having. He walked 14 miles back to school, and it wasn't a very pleasant moment. I had to actually physically restrain him in the reception area for nearly 25 minutes. We in the end called the police. That young man was taken by the police at that moment. I recall talking to local authority colleagues who were in special schools. Because of a local decision made by that local authority, if there was a disruption in the special school, they would call the police to take the young person away. We have many care homes around the country, independent care homes, whose first resort is to call the police. That's just one small reflection from the front line of the type of young people who are ending up following a pathway into custody. I'd like to introduce Phil now. Phil Sutton, unfortunately, his camera's playing up, but he might give a short perspective from the Association of Youth Offending Team Managers. Phil, over to you, please, sir.
Thanks, Marius. And yeah, it's not because I've just come in from a sun lounger in the garden. Genuinely, the camera isn't working, but I know how to get it working. I'll do that in a few minutes. Thank you, Marius. The Association of Yacht Managers is the professional association for managers of and managers in youth offending teams or youth justice services across England. I've been working with them as a project officer for a number of years now, and last couple of years we've held an annual members day where we share good practice from the regions across England. Last year, Kay shared the work that she'd been doing with Cleveland Police and the custody suite there. And I think everybody was kind of wowed by it, really. And it started a bit of a chain reaction of interest from other youth justice services and police services across the country. So it's great, Marius, that you've been able to pull all that together today and hear from different people who've been going along the same track as Cleveland, but maybe coming up with some slightly different answers. We shall see. But thank you
Lovely.
again.
Thank you so much, Phil. And I know you're going to leave us and then rejoin, hopefully,
Yeah,
with your camera
in
for a
in full
discussion.
Technicolor.
So look, without further ado, I would love to call on Wes Gladwin from Warwickshire. Wes is going to talk to us a little bit about what they do in Warwickshire. We've got about 10 minutes for each of our service providers to talk. So Wes, please do share your screen and tell us a little bit about how Warwickshire takes on this thing. As you're talking, Wes, could you first of all describe what a custody suite is? Because I think people might actually have a question about that.
Yeah, firstly, thank you, Marius, for having us. It's quite a privilege, actually, for it, the work we're doing to be recognised. So I am grateful for that. It's an interesting question. What is a custody suite? And it's something I have to remind the custody team, which will form part of what I've added to the early part of the presentation, which is around our attitudes and our understanding as a team in the first place. But some people see custody as a punishment, as a prison. It's where you go, excuse me, when you're naughty and bad. And staff, and particularly younger officers in service, and maybe even older officers, they see it as that too quite often. And so I have to remind them that look, it's a facility to hold people where it's necessary to do that for a number of reasons. Perhaps there's outstanding property, outstanding offenders, the person may not cooperate with police investigations. But there has to be a necessity to take that person's human rights away from them and lock them in a facility where they're not free to leave during the course of that investigation. And so that, from our view, is what custody is. It's a detention facility for that purpose. And that we see people, we should be seeing people as neither guilty nor innocent. We're just investigating facts. They're certainly not being prosecuted at that stage. And we're there to look after them, to ensure their human rights remain, and that we abide by pace, and that we treat people fairly. Excuse me. I don't know if that answers it to some degree, Marius.
Lovely, lovely, sir. Thank you.
Shall I go through this presentation then?
Yes, please.
So I've tried to keep this for 10 minutes, so it sort of cuts to the chase, Marius. So the first question I've asked is, what has been essential in achieving improvements? And that's obviously in Warwickshire. And as I've just said, the first point really, and is critical, it's critical to everything else working, is our values and our attitudes, ourselves as the custody team. And when I say custody team, I mean the wider custody team, our key partners as well. We've all got to buy into the same sort of ethos and put the child first and understand the sort of trauma-informed side of things. Secondly, collaboration with key partners and a willingness to learn from each other has been essential for us. I have a fantastic relationship with the youth justice team in Warwickshire, and of particular note, Rachel Watt, who's their lead. She's been absolutely fantastic in informing me about child first procedures and awareness, trauma awareness, and so forth. which I've obviously in turn shared with my team. Sharing of information has been critical as well, not just information about individuals, but information around, for example, the Concordat of Children in Custody, how perhaps one person might read it compared to the other, and how we can work with each other to interpret and embed, anything from there. But also initiatives that we have, for example, at the minute of custody passports, where we're just starting to introduce those, which is a passport that we'll hold that gives us backgrounds of key individuals, so we're ahead of the game when they come in. Listening to children and young people, I mean, actually listening to them, and listening to them through the whole process. So custody sergeants in Warwickshire should be looking at the passports. They should be speaking to the officers, and not only just listening there and then, but finding out, what were the circumstances coming to custody, what was the child saying or demonstrating. But then also, after the fact, we have child surveys, again, which Youth Justice assist us with, where we look at the feedback and take a lot of learning from that, which kind of moves straight onto the reflection and continuous learning. We've got to remain open-minded, we've got to remain forward-thinking, and we've got to always look for how we can continuously improve. And I say in a later slide, you'll see that it's a continuous journey. I don't consider for 1 minute we're where we'll be in a couple of years, or we're at the end point. I think for me, we've made a good start and we've seen some good results. And I just hope they continue. And we do that obviously through reflection and continuous learning. So we've done a lot, and I've picked up on some key areas that we chose to focus on, because like with all things, we're battling against budgets, and the estates teams and health and safety teams and so on and so forth. So everything we've done, we've had to do with the premise that it's still a custody facility. And so we introduced distraction packs, which was fidget toys. We've put on chalkboards in a couple of cells at each custody suite. We have some scented squishy sort of balls that they can squish, and they actually smell lovely, and they're actually really effective. Pens and papers, colouring books, a variety of different balls that they can kick outside or kick in the cell, throw at the targets we have, or just bounce. They're always really well used, particularly the balls. We've made environmental aesthetic improvements, which I'll show you in a bit, but that includes image wraps on the walls and charge desks. We've got something called green rooms, which were rooms that we separated specifically for children to be in, instead of going to a cell, where we're able to allow that. And that has dimmable lighting. We don't yet have lovely colours, but that's something we're still looking at now. But it's dimmable. And then we have the outside exercise yards, which have some targets and some goalposts and things they can throw the ball around at. We've got written and visual and verbal communication usage. So we have child appropriate leaflets, both in colour, font and language. We've got advisory videos on iPads at both of our custody suites. Again, that Youth Justice provided us with. It's a simple to understand and listen to animation that explains what it is to be in custody and what's likely to happen. And we've got inclusion of key partners throughout all this process, including SALT workers. So everything we've sort of discussed or had ideas around, or designs we've made, such as the graphics I'll show you, they've all gone between us, Youth Justice, and the SALT workers who have looked at the language and colours, and likewise with the green room and the colours we've used, and the type of dimmable lighting. We have new improved custody library trolley. That's like my favorite thing in the world. It's so simple, but so effective. So in the past, I'll briefly tell you how it used to happen. We had a cupboard with, I won't say full of books, because it had a few books. And a detention officer might say to the detainee, do you want a book? And they'll say, yeah. And they'd go off and come back with a Danielle Steele book, for a 12-year-old. And I saw this quite early on when I came to custody, and I was like, oh, my word, what are they doing? I wouldn't read that. So we sourced a proper library trolley, and I asked that the books get put on there, that they're categorized, that the spine is facing the right way, all simple little things. And that where we're offering the books and it's appropriate and safe, take that trolley to them, give them the choice to choose the book they want. And have it so it's in genres. And bear in mind, people might not know what a genre is. So be prepared to talk and explain things. And honestly, the uptake for it has been incredible. And I'll tell you a little bit story if I've got time when I get to the slide with the pictures on. We've made modifications to the custody cells. We've got dedicated cells to children in our blocks, where we've painted on chalkboards. For safety reasons, they have to be painted on, and some small chalkboard targets that they can throw the ball at, and we can issue toxic-free chalk that they can use. They're not massive changes, but they do. The children are using them. Specific training, we've embedded specific training within our CPD days and our initial basic training of custody sergeants, often provided by Youth Justice again. And the training has been delivered through, well, probably for the last two years now, and it's just really effective. It talks about the journey of a child, and I've seen some long-standing sergeants who perhaps were resistant to it to some degree, who had their eyes open from it. It's really effective. And then a robust application and necessity test, which is kind of what I talked about earlier. Should someone be booked into custody and put in a cell in the first place? And our sergeants are particularly robust when it comes to children or young people in our blocks. And so they will first of all look and say, well, is it necessary that this person be here? And they're not shy to turn them away, much to the dismay of some other teams. But even when they do book them in and they say, well, you know what, it is necessary that we detain this young person, they then will implement different procedures. So they'll look and say, well, what can I do to keep this person out of a cell? You know, the appropriate adult, they need to be here now. And the challenge of progressing that investigation there and then is much more robust now than it ever was in the past. And all that's just to reduce the time in custody and to reduce the impact. So they're the key areas we worked on, and there's a lot that stems from each of those. And I just wanted to show you some of the imagery from the block. So on the left there, you can see, I mean, first of all, I've written that in Warwickshire, we've got 2 suites and there's symmetry between them both. Both have all the same facilities and layout, just Leamington's a bit smaller. But this is Anna Neaton custody, and you can see on the left, we have the signage on the charge desk, which used to be scraps of A4 paper sellotaped on. And actually, most of the information wasn't there anyway. And I wanted people being booked in to stand back from the desk in a safer area, but to actually have something insightful to look at. And so working with Youth Justice and assault workers, we were able to put together this banner, if you like, but it's quite considerable when you're there. And we looked at the language to keep it as simple as possible with some sort of images that would assist for those who perhaps can't read or have difficulty reading, or maybe they just can read but are more stimulated through images. And we looked at key areas of, you know, that first of all, we're here to help, here's your rights, and here's the support that's available. And it's interesting, I don't know if you can see on this slide, but there's on the left column, you can probably see it easier on the blue sign. There's the symbol of the 2 hands coming together here like this. And my chief inspector at the time, he said to me, he said, Wes, what on earth does that mean? And I said, it means that we've got religious materials. He said, oh, I thought it was high five. And I thought, why you put that there? And then I said to him, you know, you've proved the point. You've proved that it stimulates a person to ask and to inquire. And that's something that we've seen quite a lot of improvement around. So previously, a child who's nervous, who's scared and frightened in custody might not ask. They might not feel they can ask, and they might not feel confident enough to ask. But with the images and the processes and our attitudes, I'm finding that more and more and more children, young people, and some vulnerable adults are more inclined to ask, oh, what's that? What's that mean? So it stimulates them and it gives them some distance from the desk where we can observe them safely.
Wes, you've got about 2 minutes, please. Sorry.
No worries, I'll speak
Thank you.
quicker. But anyway, the blue one I've put there just so you can see the comparison with the adults and children. They're very similar, actually. There's a closer up. Just, I know you're recording it, so someone can pause it when they watch it back to have a better look. And then this was the library, and we've just in the picture in the middle are our multi-language books that have just been provided by our language providers. They've kindly donated them. But the book, you can see it's just a normal library trolley. It's a good quality one, quite expensive, but it does exactly what we needed it to do. And you can see the literature on there. And it's rotated. We have a great relationship with the local library services who provide us with books that they no longer need. And we fulfill both of our libraries with that. I probably haven't got time to say the story, Marius, but
if there's time at the end, Wes, we'll
come back to me.
invite you warmly to it.
Yeah, but yeah, we got those libraries, and then this is the general area. You can see the orange booking area there on the right, and we just got the images in the background. I wanted them top to bottom on one wall, but you know what it's like. By the time everyone else is involved and costs and stuff, we ended up with sort of strips of images, but they have a huge effect in diffusing the whole environment, and again, not just for children, actually, for everyone, officers as well. So it's a very different environment with this image, the images in there. And then the three pictures here, and I'm near the end, I promise. We've got the green room on the left. That's the Neaton's green room. It's a tiny room. It's the only room we could convert. Leamington's room is actually triple the size of this. It's got a scenery on the side there. It's got soft seating. It's got dimmable lighting. And it's in a green that we were told is quite calming. And we're in the process now of commissioning some young children who are particularly talented with art to do some fantastic artwork that will go up on the wall, hopefully to serve as a bit of inspiration for people in there. The middle is our outdoor exercise yard with some targets. They're not great and we're still looking to develop it further, but again, they're effective. And that's one of the cells on the right there with the chalkboard and some other targets.
Thank you, Wes.
No
I'll have to cut
fine.
you off there, but we'll invite you at the end. Thank you so much for that. Wow, is what I can say first of all as feedback. Matt, can I go over to you now, please, Matt? And if you wouldn't mind stopping sharing, Wes, and we'll pass over to Matt smoothly. Matt's in an area of North London I know quite well. I was born in Enfield, and I can't say I ever availed myself of your facilities, but I certainly know Wood Green well. Over to you, Matt.
Hello, everyone. So, yes, my name's Matt Fox. My screen's all changed. Can everyone?
Yep, that's good. Just show this.
Where is it? Slide?
There it is. That's the one.
Okay, my name's Matt Fox, and I lead for children in custody for the MPS. I'm an inspector as well. Obviously, we have a couple more suites. We have 22 operational suites, and this is only one of our suites we've worked on here. I'm not going to go over because we're doing a lot of the same things that Wes has done. We've got, we're looking at books, we've got distraction items with balls, and we're really close working partnerships now, which I think is quite important because all the work you see here, unfortunately, wasn't funded by the MPS because we just do not have that sort of money. This really was a joint operation between the two local authorities that Wood Green Custody mainly serves, which is Haringey and Enfield. And for those of you who don't know the sort of area, this is Tottenham, sits in Haringey, so that's where it is Spurs. Right, so when we were looking at our suites, Unfortunately, we're not in a position where we're going to be building any new custody suites anytime soon. So we have to look at our suites and the estate that we've got and look at how we can improve those. And our main aim is to reduce adverse childhood experiences. Everyone knows coming into custody is an exceptionally traumatic experience. Whether they necessarily present that when they're stood in front of you or not, it is. We're also aware, and the MPS is very aware, that we have got a real issue with adultification of children. In some parts, that's the way the legislation pace works, in that it doesn't always make a lot of distinctions. Yes, children have to have appropriate adults, but the processes are largely the same, and custody can be very process orientated, which to young people, children, means they end up getting treated more and more like adults. So we're working to reduce our culture or change our culture and actually view children as children in line with like the general child first principles. So when children arrive at suites or anyone arrives at suites, we have holding areas. This is the holding area at Wood Green. Unfortunately, it's quite a small area. It's almost like a large cell that they will stand in until a custody sergeant is ready to see them. Unfortunately, I couldn't change the walls in here. That's actually a very thick blue plastic that's on the walls to protect them, and changing that was going to cost too much. But we've got this TV in here, and this plays a video that was designed with the help of two quite well-known researchers in the space, Miranda Bevan and Vicky Kemp. And it just goes through the general, so when they're in there, they are explaining what is going to happen to them in a child-friendly manner. So if they're in there, they can see what's going to happen to them. We will then move them other way into our booking in room. So we've got this dedicated, we call it a discrete charge area. So they will be taken away from like the main area and dealt with in this room. So they don't have to, we minimize the impact or minimize their interaction with adult offenders who might be in the custody suite. This isn't something that we can achieve everywhere. And it is one of those things that you can have very serious criminals, adults stood next to children. And we are trying to stop that as best we can. So this is a completely separate, self-contained room. And largely we've gone for very similar to what Wes and his team have done. And we've painted this green to reduce it, a bit like it's there. I couldn't get the bottom bit because that's white plastic for protective reasons. And then we've gone for this image. And this image was selected by the children. So with the help of the two local councils, we put together a series of options, and we went out and we got the voice of the child. So there was some sort of input from children. It just wasn't designed by adults in a committee. We got that. And then that TV in the back, it can be used for a number of purposes, going through videos and other bits and pieces. But as a screensaver type thing, it also just has like a fish tank. So the chair, you can just see in the right-hand image, that can be turned around. Some children don't necessarily interact very well, talk directly with adults. Sometimes they might need that calming, and that can play a number of videos where they can watch and hopefully calm them down. It doesn't show TV. We couldn't get that in there, but to try and give them something else to focus on whilst we're going about our the legal processes that we have to go through. A detention room. So again, it's very similar. On the left-hand side, that is what our cells are pretty much look like wherever you go in London. Some might be tiled, but they will look like that. Very hospitalesque, very sterile, very uninviting. Some of the design options, again, we can't do much about. We couldn't do anything about the sinks and the bed positions, but we've changed the walls. And again, we took advice. We've gone for that green calming color. There's lots of research around it, and we've painted it all over the walls. And it really does have an impact. The photos aren't great, but when you actually go in, the difference, you could almost, if you close your eyes, think you're in your own home lounge. That color, that calming nature compared to the sterile white. One of the other things we do is on the ceiling, we have a lot of like advice, like Crime Stoppers telephone numbers and things like that. in that area, in the area of London where this is, not all children speak English, can read particular English in that. And what we found is when they've got these very, as you can see, spray painted bold letters and they don't know what they say and mean, it can be quite intimidating them when they're laying down, looking straight up at it. So we went for, we'll just have it plain walls. We'll get rid of all of that, exist in the adult cells, but it doesn't exist within children's suite. And then similar again, we've got that large painted on chalkboard. I did mean to update the briefing because we have had some truly amazing pieces of artwork come through, and the ICVs, the in custody visitors, have actually displayed some of that on the ICV website. If you search the Independent Custody Visitors website, they've got some of the artwork that has been done there on that.
Matt, it'd be so lovely if you shared some of those images with me.
Yeah.
I'll add them to the slide deck. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Interview rooms now. All of the Met's interview rooms pretty much look like on the left. We did not do what they call tier 5 or enhanced interview rooms within our custody suites. They are very heavy metal benches and chairs and desks, very plain walls. All that grey around there is soundproofing, which unfortunately isn't much we could do. But and very sterile lighting, and depending on the nature, they could be in these rooms being asked a lot of questions in a very uncomfortable environment about potentially very serious issues. And it is very jarring, and that can be almost as traumatic as being in a cell. So what we did is we removed all that furniture. As you can see, we put more comfortable seating in there. The bit of wall that we did have exposed, that has been painted green. And then the other thing, and again, it's one of those things where the photos unfortunately don't really do it justice, is the light in the roof. That's a special natural daylight light. So you can almost make it out in the temperatures of the lighting in the photos, but it really makes it feel much more like it's a window outside. And it really does help relax everyone involved. And one of the things that I've said is, when people have asked me about this, is all these changes have been aimed at the children, okay? But the impact on officers has also been quite distinct. And I call it the library effect. It's how people act when they're in the library is normally very different to where they're else. By changing the environment for the children, you've also changed it for our staff. So when they're dealing with a child in like the charge room with the big mules, they start to behave differently to when they realise they're in a different place dealing with someone different. So when they were out in the main area where it's all big open plan, all the walls have been painted just that stark white, and it impacts the staff and helps drive the cultural change that will really have the biggest impact on how children are dealt with in custody.
Matt, magnificent. Thank you so much for that. And we'll come back to that theme of adultification, and if you like, what you've done is just de-adultification. What a word! Later on. Thank you so much, Matt. I'd like to now introduce Paul Brody from Cleveland, and Kay, his colleague from the Youth Justice Service, will help me sum up at the end. But yes, over to you, Paul, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'll do a quick introduction to myself. I've got a 2-minute video to show regarding our children and young persons suite. Then I'm going to talk through this suite and some of the young persons navigators that we have working for us. So first of all, just a bit of a summary of the Cleveland area. I'm an acting chief inspector, and I work in the Cleveland Police Force area. So geographically, barring the City of London, I think Cleveland Police is the smallest in the country. We serve an area populated by just over 500,000 people, and we have just short of 1,200 cops. We have one custody suite. We're a single cell force. One custody suite at Middlesbrough, which serves the whole force, and it has 50 cells. We're kind of lucky with our children and young persons suite. So the building was built in 2007. It's a PFI building. It was built in 2007. Part of that custody suite, we had a small wing of 4 cells, which was originally designated as a prevention of terrorism suite. However, we never used it for terrorism purposes, and it was soon mothballed want of a better way of putting it, for the terrorism purposes, and it's just become a bit of a dumping ground, bit of an overspill, etc. What we've done, and I'm sure Kale helped me out with this bit in a little bit, is we turn that into a children and young persons custody suite. So we've adapted it from the pot suite to a suite specifically for children and young people only. It's still a wing part of the custody suite, but you'll see when you go through the video, it's a suite within a suite. You should have no reason, or a child should have no reason, to go into the adult custody suite. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to share a video that does have some volume. It is available on YouTube. If you just typed in Cleveland Police Youth Custody Suite, you'd get it. But I'll see if I can share the video now. Let me see if this works. Hopefully it will. Is that on there, Marius? Have we got the video on?
No, we haven't got it yet. I will look up that video while you carry on talking, and then I'll be able to share it from my server. So carry on talking, sir. You said Cleveland Police Youth Custody Suite, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just going on again to give you a bit of picture about the Cleveland Force area. So we take roughly 17,000 prisoners a year. Of that 17,000, roughly 1,000 are children, sadly, who come into our suite. We've got some big problems, like many of the forces. We're made up of 4 districts, 4 local council authority areas. I would say 3 of them are more like your shire forces, whereas Middlesbrough is like a metropolitan force. And I've worked in the Met as well. Matt at East London, I worked. And I can obviously, a lot of the things I worked in London, I can relate to the Middlesbrough area as well. It's got its big problems. Have we got it?
Yep, here it comes.
Yep. Thank you.
When a young person is arrested and brought into custody in Middlesbrough, they will now be dealt with in the brand new Youth Focus Custody Suite. The young person will be booked in on arrival at custody, during which the officer will record details about their arrest. They'll be asked a number of questions about their health, and their property may be seized. If their clothing is seized, then replacement clothes will be provided. The young person will be given access to an appropriate adult and informed of their legal rights when one is present. They must be accompanied by an appropriate adult if under 18, and a legal representative should they choose to elect one. The young person will then be taken in to get their fingerprints done and their DNA taken. An appropriate adult must be present when the young person is having their fingerprints and DNA taken. They will then be taken down to their cell. This is one of our cells for young people. The suite has its own entry point and reception area, and it's decorated with artwork which is based on designs created by young people. It's hoped the trauma-informed custody suite will minimise a child's exposure to the custody environment and provide additional support to assist the young person. The young person will also have access to a small breakout room where they can speak to one of the custody navigators, who offers both support in custody and in the community. The South Tees Youth Justice Service runs the groundbreaking Custody Navigators project, which is also funded by Curve, which sits within the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner of Cleveland. The scheme operates across the whole of the Cleveland Police area. During their time in custody, they will also have access to a small exercise area. The young person will then be taken to the interview room to be questioned about the incident they were arrested for.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I'll be what's the phrase? I'll be borrowing with pride some of the areas I've seen from the other forces. But obviously things develop as time goes on. But yeah, so that's our custody suite. That's our children, young persons custody suite. Like I said at the start, it's a suite within a suite. Everything that the child should need while they're in custody: medical provisions, biometrics, fingerprints, exercise, interview, booking in and exit can take place in that suite, preventing them going into the main area.
Super.
So I'll talk a little bit about the navigators, and then I'll pass on to Kay, because Kay was Kay was instrumental in getting them up and running.
Could we leave the navigators to the summary bit, because I really want to come back to that. That would be fantastic. I'd like to bring Bill in. Bill, if you're there, Bill, I'd like to move it on to you. But we'll definitely come back to the navigators, because that's a
No
really
problem.
interesting concept. Thank you so much for that, Paul. Bill. I've got Bill on, but he doesn't seem to be there. So look, while Bill's maybe fixing his connection there, Paul, yes, do say something about the navigators now, please. Oh no, oh, it's all right. We've got Bill. Here he is. Lovely.
Oh, that's it. That's it. The world's gone mad. The excitement is rippled through everybody. I have to apologise to everyone to start off with. I've just been on a meeting for Op Nova at the Taunton Hospital. Dived into the nearest place which had a cafe, which I thought had Wi-Fi. Dunelm does not have Wi-Fi to explain this. So I'm using my phone, so I apologise to everyone. And I will be showing you some beautiful clips of our suites. I know you've got them.
I'll do my
First off,
best. Yes.
Yeah, if you could. So first off, all I want to do is say well done to Matt and Wesley for obviously and your last caller or your last presenter for the work they've done. And it's just to show to people, police forces are on the limited budget, and it's what we've done using those limited budgets, which can enhance the use for just not children. I know this is primarily about children, young people, but anyone with neurodiverse issues or those who just need that additional support, and to break away that bleakness of the old 1970s, get them in, lock them up, and that's the way we used to do it. It's a lot more sort of a sensible approach, a lot more of a learning environment. And I use that term because we are all slowly but surely cross-pollinating ideas. We're actually bringing on sort of suggestions, exploring them. And as been seen on the other two areas, which they've already been able to access their slides and things, there seems to be a common theme. Oh, look at that. He's managed to get it out. That's fantastic. Look at that. So we put it under the neurodiversity aspect. So we moved to 3 brand new units around about 9 years ago. That's me at the top, because obviously I overrule those ones on everything. And what we looked at was taking it away, as you say, from that initial stark coming to the custody. This is it. You're going to be punished. This is the punishment block. And as you remind people, you're actually innocent until a court decides that you're guilty. So it's to manage the people coming in, and by learning with the staff as well. And again, copying some of the other presenters who've already brought in, we looked at what we did and how we dealt with people, and realised that we needed a root and branch change to some extent on how we deal with people with different issues. You know, it is, we dealt with a couple of companies. Grease Puddle was absolutely fantastic, and they taught us to just change some of the sort of language, some of the terminology, and be more direct and sort of manage the conversation, which obviously manages the expectation of those who come in. And then we looked at the physicality of the building and what we could do, take away that dark whiteness system. And then we would, obviously, we've put the pictures on. I don't know if you can keep pressing those, Maris, because that's the skylight in there, which obviously originally was white and just the light coming through. It's enhanced it for the staff as well, so everybody's in a lighter mood. If you keep going with those ones. One of the other byproducts which came out from this, because you think, you know, how does it affect people, is we had something like a 55% reduction in number of assaults on staff. And that's quite important, because those people who service those individuals as well. And we brought these changes in, working with the University of Bath in Leeds, and one in America whose name slips me at the moment, because I've got a lady buying a hot roast potato on the side there. Apologies. She's making quite big of it. I think she wants beans and cheese. But it's these little changes which have brought out you can see on those two pictures, it looks the same bit, but if you notice, the lighting's different. So what we can do is we can actually change the lighting, change the hue, We can make it super bright. We can take it away. We can make it as dark as you want to, just to make it a little bit more livable. We've subsequent to these pictures, we've now put targets on the wall, not for the career of the food. It's we try and give them the balls, as other people have mentioned, so you can throw foam balls at them. And it's less anything to utilise the time they're in, because obviously the investigation's going through, and you're trying to make them as comfortable as you are, remembering that there is an investigation, because obviously this is the point where we've tried all the other aspects of keeping you from being in custody. So this means, you know, we have to do you in this way, and very much like the other officers who've obviously relayed at the moment, we do a very big scrutiny on who should be coming through and why we've not utilised any other means. So where have you gone, Max? There he is. Expect for a bigger. I'm using this on the phone. First time I've done it on the phone, so apologies everyone. I'm a novice on this one as well. So as it says, you know, with that little bit of work we've done, it's the detention officer is much happier with the way they deal with people. It's good working environment, but also fewer self-harm, because when you lock people up and you don't give them the distraction, you don't give them the time, and you don't entertain them to the point, and I don't mean juggling or anything, I mean by sort of explaining to them what's going to happen, recognizing their expectations and saying, yes, we will be dealing with you, we will feed you, we'll clothe you, we'll wash you if needs be. It does mean that their concentration is taken away on the situation they've got themselves in, or they find themselves in, and remove that need to harm. We've all seen a lot of harm over the time. And this is another aspect of the working more slicker with what you've got to utilize the budgets in a way which gives greater coverage for least amount of work. And we're reaching out to lots of different organizations just to come into our custody units now, and just see what we've done and what the staff have done. Yeah, if you keep popping over through those ones for me, that'd be great, Maris. And as it says there, better understanding of needs. And that's one thing I think all police forces across the whole country have been guilty of in the past, is we're the police and this is what we do. Without looking at that aspect of, well, how can we support that person in our custody at that time in a better manner? Because ultimately we're still trying to find out why, you know, what has brought them to our door, what's actually happened, what their involvement is in any alleged crimes or incidents. And it's to make sure it's a satisfactory conclusion for their input and our input, which, you know, if that means they're going to court, it means they're going to court. If it means they've got some other sanction, because we've explored in our force a whole host of different aspects of what would be a sanction, which would be happy for the actual victim or anybody partaking in that incident, which they'd be happy with, because ultimately it's not about criminalising, it's about educating and showing what is acceptable, what we accept, and what they should be adhering to. You able to press a few more of those, Marius, please? We managed to get all our walls are all different. And it was great. When you're looking through the book, they look fantastic. And when you put most of them up, they are fantastic. There's just a few anomalies. I inadvertently put one in one of the holding cells, which we don't use a lot, because if you go in there, you with the lights on, you look like you've been tangoed. So we do try and there's a reluctance to go in, or not a reluctance, but they can see what we've tried to do. But the beauty is, yes, we do all this work, but something nobody really takes a huge amount of is, what's the feedback? What's the feedback from the actual service users, and what areas can they help us to improve? Because I think it was where it said we need to obviously let children, young people have a voice. And if they spot something, yes, we got all the distraction toys, the comics, the books, we've got everything, all the painting things, colouring bits, balls, fidget toys. We lend them out the fidget toys if our staff have finished playing with them, because it's obviously a good thing for them to sort of get rid of some of the pent up they're feeling as well. But
We've got about a minute. We've got about a minute left, Bill. Do you want to say something about the challenges?
Well, the challenge was to get buy-in by our COG group, because obviously they looked at, oh, this is going to cost us an arm and a leg. And when reality is, when you start looking at 3 units and the money we've spent, it's, if you're really sensible with your money, you can make it go an awful long way for a very little change. You know, painting the cells in those colours, that was amazing. That was sort of, you know, it's, when you look at the costings, it was absolutely fantastic. But all our partners who work within custody as well, they've all had their say. We've changed different colours for them as well. So it really is. If anybody wants to reach out to Avon Somerset, I'm Bill Hillier. Feel free to contact, and I can sort of, you know, expand on anything you need to know. So I think I'll call it there, Marius.
Oh, Bill, superb. Wes, Paul, Bill, and Matt, what a fantastic presentation. I sincerely hope that colleagues here, I mean, some of the comments we've had have just been wonderful. Really, really positive. People wanting to share these videos and your resources to their police forces and their custody suites. I'd like to go back to one of the issues, Kay, from the perspective of a youth justice professional, a leader. How have these changes that you've manufactured with Paul been received by the young people? But also, I'd love you to see something about the navigation, the navigators you have. Over to you, Kay, please.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Marius. I think when we set off with our project up in Cleveland, I think my vision was that, you know, I'd never kind of understood why police custody was the only place in the whole of the criminal justice system where children came into contact with adults. We've got a separate system, youth justice, we've got separate courts, we have separate prisons, yet in police custody, everyone's mixed together, so it kind of never made sense. So to have that complete separation now has been absolutely fantastic. The feedback that we've had from our young people, and as Paul Brody will come in and support, I'm sure, to have the custody navigators based within our Cleveland custody suite, the two things fit hand in glove and work really well together because we've got that separation space, we've got a space that's created by children, for children, it's trauma informed, it's child first. That space and time and the separation that they've got away from the adults, it's a much more trusting environment. They tell us that, you know, we've had some disclosures given to us about children being exploited because they felt comfortable enough to do that in that environment. I think our partnership work is really strengthened because those children have got access to exactly the same provision as the adults, despite it being completely separate. And I think, you know, ultimately children are receiving support at a much earlier point than they were. They can be signposted immediately from custody and receive ongoing support and outreach. So Paul, I don't know if you want to come in and say something about the navigators.
I think you're still muted there, Paul. There we go.
Found it. You covered most of it, Kate, to be honest. We've had some great success stories. There's a breaking down of the barriers. Obviously, we have a small team of 4. The uniform's a barrier, isn't it? I'm sure the cops on the call will relate to that. The uniform can sometimes be a barrier. They're not cops. They're here to help the young people in custody. Obviously, we work together and we help each other, but they're not here for policing purpose. They help the young people in custody. But the assistance is twofold. So the young people get good things out of the navigators, but we as the police do as well. So we found that having people from the local youth offending service in the navigators, we've been able to share information much quicker than we would ordinarily. So if we need to get hold of a certain social worker, or we need to check systems to see which social worker a child under, any plans that they're under, etc., we can do that through the navigators, which is having a positive effect and is bringing the detention time for children in custody down quite significantly. And I know we were visited by colleagues from the Met South Yorkshire and the College of Policing recently. And I think our detention times are quite favourable compared to some others. And like my 2 police colleagues said who went before me, ultimately we don't want children in custody, and we, like the other forces, we scrutinise. There's no reason or no necessity or no proportionality for them to be there. There won't be, but we recognise that's not an ideal world. Sometimes they will have to be in. So it's making the best use of everything while they're in, looking after them and keeping them in for as short a time as we can, whilst directing them for any help that they need.
And Paul, that triangulates 100% to our feelings and our observations over the past 10 years of doing the Youth Justice Centre Awards. 90% plus of the children who end up in a youth justice pathway have degrees of speech, language, and communication needs. 70% of young people who end up in youth justice pathways have neurodivergent tendencies of dyslexia or dyspraxia or ADHD or autism that haven't been identified because of their cultural, their societal, and, if you like, their personal pressures. Our colleague mentioned ACEs as well. All of these collide, and when a young person enters a custody suite, what I've heard today, and I hope you all have on the call, is some amazing changes. Can I just go back to Wesley? Wesley, would you like to just sort of bookend some of your thoughts about what you've heard today and some of the ways you might want to develop things further?
Yeah, thanks, Marius. I think we're all on the same page, and it's nice to hear other police forces who have clearly the same set of values that we do. And sort of as I've been listening, I've made notes, and I have to always come back to the culture of us as a police force for a start. But how do we get it, and how have I embedded it here with this team? And it's partnership work, and I think that's the whole point of this really as well. The partnership work has been essential because there's things I just didn't know and my team didn't know prior to working with youth justice, and if I'm honest, opinions I didn't realize I had until they were pointed out, and then it took me to sit there and say, oh, hang on, I do accept what she's saying here, and it's about time I started passing that on, and so that partnership work is so critical, and it's the same with the financial thing. We have these budgets that we've got to sort of work within, but the partners we've had between the library and youth justice and Liddy has been essential in getting some of this done, and with the fidget toys and the different distraction materials and paint and books and iPads and so forth. So if I was going to encourage any other police force, I would say your starting point has to be partnership work with all the right people. So they're my sort of closing thoughts of what we've discussed.
Thank you so much. Lovely watching the comments coming in, and I think Sussex are trying to trump you and say, yeah, we do everything, and we also have some well-being dogs as well, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Phil, would you like to close things off, please? That'd be so nice if you're not, could you unmute? Yeah, that'll be brilliant. Thank you, Phil.
Unmute, I hope. Good. Yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you, everybody. I was pretty struck by something that Bill said about the research. You say 55% reduction in assaults on staff. I thought this was going to be all about the children and the impact on children, but actually to hear that it's not just that. Some of the impact on police culture, the reduction in violence against staff, I think is really, really compelling. And when you kind of cross-refer to what's happening in the secure estate where children go if they're sentenced to custody, they've been talking about a fourfold increase in the number of assaults on staff in the last couple of years, and that's become a justification for some changes in the way, or if you like, the kit that they're using to keep order within secure accommodation. If those lessons that you're beginning to learn from research about how this kind of work reduces violence against staff, it would be great if that could be further developed and we read that across into the secure custodial estate as well. So thank you all very much. I think some great groundbreaking work, and you're on a journey that I think, and Marius, thank you for bringing everybody together so people can learn from each other and share experiences.
Oh, wonderful. Everybody on the call who has registered for these will receive a recording of today. We have a hard stop coming in about 10 seconds. So thank you to everyone who's participated. Thank you also to all of the people who've joined us on this call. It's one of the best attended calls we've had. And thank you, Bill, Kay, Paul, Wes, Matt, and of course Phil, for your contributions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon.